Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to Interchange, and thank you so very much for joining us. Lots to talk about again today. Marquette University is coming under a lot of fire this week for its failure to properly handle some students' complaints that they were sexually assaulted by Marquette student athletes. We'll talk about President Obama's plan to start bringing home the troops from Afghanistan, and we will talk about some new suggestions about how to improve Milwaukee's downtown nightlife scene. All right, let me introduce everybody. We have newspaper columnist Joel McNally. Kevin Fischer, a longtime broadcaster, political analyst, and oftentimes a fill-in host over on WISN Talk Radio. And Denise Callaway, the coordinator of business and community partnerships for the Milwaukee Public School System. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, the first thing we'll talk about is Marquette University. In the national spotlight this week, following a Chicago Tribune article about how the university failed to act properly in its handling of 2 alleged sexual assault cases this past school year. The school failed to report the cases to the Milwaukee Police Department in a timely manner. Each case involves allegations by women against student athletes at Marquette. Marquette says it did conduct internal investigations, admits that it made unintentional mistakes, and promises that it won't happen again. But some folks are still wondering if the university acted in a way to protect its own image and its athletes instead of the alleged victims. Denise, I can absolutely see how somebody might think that.
Well, you can. And, I think these cases, when they involve student athletes, just become much more complicated. It should be something that's cut and dry, but in many cases it's not. And part of the reason is the way student athletes themselves are treated on campus. They're treated as being above everyone else. And sometimes that connotation carries over when, unfortunately, a case like this is being examined and you're trying to figure out what happened. But I think the important thing is that Marquette has admitted that it made mistakes and that it's going to remedy those and move forward now, making sure that, yes, it conducts its own private investigation, but at the same time, it reports those cases to the Milwaukee Police Department. It's a staggering number of young women who will become victims of sexual assault or attempted sexual assault at some point in time during their college careers. You have this mix of young people who are often out on their own for the very first time, living in apartments or college dorms where they don't have the same kind of supervision that they had when they were at home living with mom and dad, and alcohol. Usually a lot of alcohol. So you have this combination where for students, all students involved, inhibition is gone. So students, they're not making good choices about the positions that they put themselves in or that they find themselves in. And it adds to the difficulty of investigating the case. The real tragedy, I think, is that these young women have not and probably never will have the opportunity to tell their story and have that investigated in a timely manner by police so it can be determined whether or not a crime took place. And if it took place, for these young men to be charged and prosecuted. Sexual assault is not just, dating or making out that goes too far. It is a violent crime. It is a violent act, and these young women deserved to have their opportunity to tell what happened and for these young men to be prosecuted if, in fact, a rape did occur. I mean, that's what it is. The sexual assault is a rape, and they deserve to have that, and the unfortunate thing is they won't be able to have it. Even worse, it's the scars that it leaves for these young women about having been violated and not having the opportunity to have the people who allegedly did this be brought to justice.
Marquette apologized for not following proper procedure, and they said from now on we're going to do this and this and this and this and this, which is somewhat reactive rather than proactive. But how, in this day and age, can you not exactly know how you should respond to an allegation of sexual assault?
There's no excuse. There's the number of outrages in this story. It's one after another. Not only did they violate state law, they admit that they've been doing it for 10 years. And ignorance is no excuse. Well, we didn't know. That's not good enough. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. That's not good enough. And you have sent this message now that at Marquette University, I'm telling you, if I'm the parent of a young daughter, I have real reservations about sending my daughter to that school now. I'm not convinced that it's safe for young women who come forward. They tell their story. They're basically ignored. So what does that tell the women on Marquette University's campus? That it's open hunting season on you. You are a target. And to just say, well, we didn't know about the law. And then you have a dean of students who is a female outrageously telling one of the victims, well, forget about it. You're better off not going through this hassle. And by the way, did you think about praying about this? It's one outrage after another. And for Marquette to say, well, we did wrong. We know we did. We're sorry. It'll never happen again. I'm sorry, that doesn't absolve them. They look pretty bad in this.
Were you surprised at how they reacted?
Boy, do I have to be the only one to mention this is a Roman Catholic institution that in recent decades has been destroyed. The religion in many ways has been destroyed and alienated a whole lot of people by doing just exactly the same thing, by trying to protect the institution instead of being concerned about the victims of crimes.
And student athletes.
Well, but the student athletes is true, but as you point out, Kevin, they've been doing it for 10 years. And it wasn't always student athletes, right. But it certainly was, for the most part, women who are being victimized in this case. But this, just like the Catholic Church protected priests who preyed on children, this Catholic institution in 2011 is doing, that's its first tendency when something like this happens is not to be concerned about the crime or the victim or even the perpetrator who may well need a lot of help as well. It's to try to protect the institution and cover up what has gone on here and violate the law while you're at it. I mean, did they learn absolutely nothing from the devastation that has been visited on this church as a result of the previous crimes that took place? Apparently not.
But you also had some very incompetent security officers on campus who had absolutely no had no regard for the law or for the feelings of these women or for what they had to say. To blithely dismiss them when your job is security and protection is, again, and I will use the word again, outrageous.
But I think that the problem is that we're talking about what happened at Marquette. The reality of this is you can substitute any other school in there as well.
And bureaucracies are always trying to protect themselves.
They are trying to protect themselves. They, part of it is they're trying to protect themselves. Part of it is, I think, they don't know how to handle it. Their officers are not trained how to do that. Their officers are trained to say, if you have students who are intoxicated, these are the things that you do. The fact that a sexual assault may somehow be involved in any of this, they don't think about. But I think what may actually finally get schools to toe the line, quite frankly, is not the kind of negative publicity like Marquette got. I think for a number of schools, what's going to happen is the federal government is now really starting to crack down.
Commendably, yes.
Saying if you don't follow the law, if you don't report these crimes, if you don't make sure that they're investigated properly, for many college campuses, that means by the local police, not by you, because you don't have the skill set to do it, that they're going to start taking money away from schools. I think that is what is going to finally get schools to decide that they need to be serious about these allegations that young women bring forward. They need to make sure they're properly investigated, and it doesn't make a difference who the accuser is. That person needs to be
he or she plays basketball or football.
They need to be questioned and treated like anybody else.
And good for the Chicago Tribune, an outstanding expose here, and once again the local news media is playing catch up and is eating another news media outlet's dust.
All right, next topic. President Obama announced this week that he's going to wind down the war in Afghanistan. We've been fighting there for 10 years now. He'll bring 10,000 troops home by the end of the year, another 23,000 home by the end of next summer. The rest of the 68,000 or so troops that are there should be home, he says, in a few years. Is this a good timetable? Did we win the war? Is it really almost over? Did we accomplish what we had wanted to, Kevin? Or is he simply reacting to a public that is tired of this war?
Okay, I'll try to hit those all in the order you threw them at me. Did we win the war? I don't think so, not when our top generals are saying that even with the huge number of troops we have there, the best in the world, the the best military on the planet that we have fought to a draw. So no, I don't think we can claim victory. So is it a good timetable? We won't know until 2012 when they come home. When they all come home, and that sounds good to everybody to have our troops home, but does that escalate the situation there? Will there be an increase in casualties? That is a concern. I really would not have done this until I was assured that you have a chance of victory. You don't have a chance of victory by bringing these troops home. Your chance of victory is lessened now. This was, I think, pretty transparent on the part of the president, no matter what party you adhere to. He is in re-election campaign mode right now. And look at when those troops are coming home, right near the 2012 election. There'll be lots of absentee ballots coming in at about the same time that a lot of those troops are coming home. This was a calculated, orchestrated political move to try to win votes next year.
But poll after poll shows that the public is tired of this war.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I hear a Republican say something about winning this war, I don't have any idea what they're talking about. You don't win a war that's been going on.
You're not in it to
years.
lose.
You do not win a war that's been going on for 10 years that has a corrupt government that we put in place that is taking bags of money from Iraq and Iran. There's a corrupt government, and we're providing the police force in that country for a corrupt government, a country that's never had a central government. And it still doesn't. It's run by criminals. It's run by warlords. And
I would agree the people there, I don't think want a government, making it difficult to win there.
We've been there for 10 years. We've given enough. And I was encouraged that the timetable was a little faster than what the generals wanted. Generals never want to, they want to stay involved in wars because that's where they win medals.
They want to win the battle.
Their job.
They want to fulfill the mission.
There is no mission to fulfill. What are you going to fulfill? Are you going to create a government there? As people have said, if we're going to be nation building, let's build America. Let's not spend billions of dollars to build roads in Afghanistan where there are no roads. Let's spend billions of dollars to fix the streets in the city of Milwaukee.
But will we have a base over there for 50 years like we have one in Japan and Germany?
Of course we will. You take a look at the infrastructure that we've built in Kabul, for example. It's just like the infrastructure we've built in Afghanistan. You don't build movie theaters and bowling alleys on bases if you don't think you're going to be there for a while. But I think the challenge for us as a country has been, Afghanistan seemed to make sense to us because we could tie Afghanistan back to 9/11 and the Taliban. And so,
that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, but it seemed to make sense to us then. I think that we won't win this, and I'm not sure what winning a war looks like in the Middle East, first of all. But we won't win this because we didn't pay attention to it. We didn't. We decided that, Afghanistan made perfect sense. And it's like almost, hey, while we're there, let's go ahead and throw in Iraq as well. We didn't really take and pay attention to the challenges that existed in that country. We didn't fully estimate what it would take to come in and attack the issues there. And on top of that, we went in and decided that in terms of nation building, that meant building a country that looked just like us. That's not what the people of Afghanistan wanted.
They're not sure what they want. They're not sure if they want the status quo. Do they want democracy? And as I've said on this program many times, I believe it's an unwinnable war. That being one of the reasons, because you have a populace that really doesn't care if their government is corrupt or nothing. And you have a terrain that makes it almost impossible for ground troops. But having said that, if you do want to prevail there and attempt to bring democracy there, you don't do it by bringing back a majority of the troops home.
But if he's saying,
you know what, we may be sending them right back in 2013 or 2014.
How many other countries do we need to decide what kind of governments they're going to have?
I wish it could be
who's going to run the country?
I wish it could be zero.
Unwinnable for us because we defined what victory is going to be based on our ideals, not on what the Afghan
Which is
people
not
wanted.
a terrible notion.
If he
But
stayed,
it's the wrong way for us to be able to do that.
if
So
he
we're
stayed,
trying.
would this be his Vietnam?
It already is. It's George Bush's and Barack Obama's Vietnam. It's lasted longer than Vietnam. It's lasted longer than World War II.
Well, I would say,
there's no reason to stay there.
And
I
that
would
is,
say
and
the
that is a
difference is-
justifiable criticism that it's been a very costly and lengthy
It's been a very
war.
costly and lengthy war. It's been a war that, quite frankly, we've not budgeted for, which is a large part of the reason that we have some of the economic problems that we have in this country now. We're spending money on a war that we don't have. You want to talk about where we're spending money that we don't have? It's on this war. I think the difference between this and Vietnam is that people in this country feel like we were attacked by a faction that was a strong faction in Afghanistan.
But you know who
And
that was?
and that's
That was
what it is
Osama
to
bin
do
Laden under the cover of the Taliban in Afghanistan. We have killed Osama bin Laden. The Taliban is no longer running Afghanistan. That happened a long time ago.
But you pull out, you re-energize the Taliban.
Osama bin Laden, just happened. It took almost 10 years
And
to
to
do
pull
it.
out just for political reasons because you want votes is not the reason.
It's not. I mean, that's what was promised.
That's the number one. That's the number one reason he's doing it,
That's
because
not it.
3 out of 10 people will vote for him. His numbers are in the tank, and he knows it.
All right, next topic.
not.
This week, yet another report, another one is released about what should be done to improve the nightlife in downtown Milwaukee. It suggests better tavern and nightclub management and a neighborhood organization, a residents organization, that should be created. That might help things on Water Street in the 3rd Ward, but I don't think it's going to do anything to get Wisconsin Avenue going. And when we used to talk about downtown, it was Wisconsin Avenue, but now you got the Hop and Water Street area, you've got the 3rd Ward, which is booming.
Yeah, the 3rd Ward and Water Street are the nightlife in Milwaukee.
Yep.
It's not on Wisconsin Avenue. We don't like gatherings of young people.
Well, people move into the condos,
We really
and then they
don't.
start complaining that they're hanging out at the bars,
Exactly.
and those two groups don't get along.
Right.
I mean, any decent sized city has a Rush Street or a Water Street or, some place that young people go for the bar scene. And that's not for the kinds of people that are moving downtown, and of course they don't like it, and of course they have a lot of political influence, and kids don't. But the truth of the matter is, you want to have some life in your city. And you can't get away from the fact, true, in this city too, that when certain clubs start attracting African Americans, that seems to be some place that we suddenly have to shut down. And it's because the bar scene on Water Street is more, Marquette students and folks like that. We let a lot of things go on there, but young people today do not have the same racism that their parents and the older generation have, and they are going to mix and match in all different ways. And I don't think the leadership in this town is really serious about wanting to create any more nightlife. As a matter of fact, they were probably bothered by the nightlife they have.
Denise, when you drive down Wisconsin Avenue at about 10 o'clock at night and you see 3 people walking down the street, you think to yourself, oh, they've got to do something. I mean, this is the main street.
I was going to say,
the main street
after the show.
What can they do to give it a little more life?
I think the problem with Wisconsin Avenue is, quite frankly, the physical structure. You don't have much sidewalk space. If you take a look at great cities that have great downtowns, their downtown main streets look different. There's more space for people to walk.
And there's outdoor eating.
There's
on the
outdoor
sidewalk.
eating. You're not
When there
right
is a
up.
summer.
Yeah, you're not. Or we could
can
just
go
bring
out.
out the heaters in our parkas. But we have a physical problem with the way Wisconsin Avenue is structured. It's structured like any other street. There's no space for any of those things that you're talking about there. I mean, the way we need to do this is like move everything back about 10 feet on each side of Wisconsin Avenue, which probably isn't very practical. But if you take a look at other cities, I mean, those are the types of things that they've done. And the challenge that we face is also how to bring something other than bars down to Wisconsin Avenue and that area surrounding it. You've got to be able to have a robust retail environment, and you have to be able to have a robust restaurant environment. You don't have that on Wisconsin Avenue.
But you
and
have
until
enough.
you do, well, I don't think you do.
You have
Kevin.
enough, and there needs to be more. No disagreement. But you have enough that you can at least advertise. I would get the involved, interested downtown parties to get together and to pool their resources and go on a massive media blitz and show people why everybody in the world wants to eat at the Harbor House, why Carl Rosch's is still strong decade after decade after decade, why we have great theater, why we have great nightlife on Water Street. Work with the Department of Tourism. Have those videos shown in hotels all around the southeastern Wisconsin area. Make it easier to park downtown. We're so steadfast on getting people out of their cars into mass transit. People want to be able to come downtown and park and not come out after eating at one of these establishments and see a ticket on their windshield. And then, as part of that campaign, that media campaign, try to impart upon people that it is a safe, wonderful environment. It is. Downtown is very safe, but all of us know people who are afraid for whatever reason to come downtown. They're mistaken, but that notion needs to be eliminated.
But you know, there's nothing to do on our main drag. You know, in a few weeks from now, I'll be in Indianapolis, and you take a look at Washington Avenue there and Meridian Street. There is tons of stuff that's going on there.
Well,
so I don't have to wonder.
You're right.
I don't
You
have
can't
to wonder
force
what
people.
I'm going to do. I mean,
You can't force people to come to Wisconsin Avenue. You're right, but you can't force a developer or a restaurant owner to say, "Hey, I'm going to go on 3rd or 4th in Wisconsin."
But there was a developer that wanted to develop the PAP site that wanted to attract people and wanted to attract young people, and he talked about some video game arcade and that drove drove everybody crazy. But this was a high-end version. This was like what they built out around Mayfair recently, and the town went crazy. The idea that young people would actually get together somewhere was like threatening to them. And I just don't think the leadership of this community realizes that everybody, coming along isn't like them.
Well, you have the Mayfair Mall, too, which is also not intentionally, but because it's the best mall in the state, it has taken a lot of people from the downtown area, and now those shoppers will not come east of Mayfair Mall.
You know what? I will tell you, I think if you did have opportunities for quality shopping there, people would come.
I agree.
If you had a Nordstrom's there, you're going to attract a whole different kind of crowd
I agree.
of people.
And you
And other developers will come along the way.
The county to go to a movie.
All right.
I agree with that as well.
All right. You heard the old saying that those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Well, what about those politicians and business people who are actually trying to forget the past? Here's Rick Horowitz.
Come, join me. The amnesia sticks are kicking in. Already the past is just a blur. It's better that way. I'm watching the candidates. I'm watching the news. The candidates are complaining about the government, about how big it is and how incompetent it is, how it's always getting in the way of business when we need to be open for business. So they want to shut down this agency and that agency, get rid of this rule and that regulation, and lots of other rules and regulations. Without all those rules and regulations, businesses would be growing again. The economy would be humming again. That's what the candidates say. And the titans of Wall Street and the Chamber of Commerce are saying the very same thing. Government is the problem. Oversight is the problem. You want more growth? Give us fewer rules. You want more jobs? Give us fewer regulations. And the congressmen, they sound just like the candidates and the titans and the chamber. Get rid of the rules, they say. Don't appoint anyone who will enforce the rules. Strangle the agencies that make the rules. Cut their staffing. Cut their funding. Cut their... Do you feel it? Do you feel that tiny buzzing sensation right behind your forehead? It's your memory trying to break out of the smoke and the fog. There are things you're hearing that aren't quite right, that don't quite fit with other things you used to hear, with things you used to know. Perhaps you're trying to remember home buyers running roughshod over lenders when it came time to take out a mortgage. Perhaps you're trying to remember consumers pulling the wool over the eyes of the credit card companies, or investment firms collapsing because the rules were too strict, or hedge funds so tied up in regulatory knots that they couldn't rake in their billions. Or perhaps you're thinking it was the other way around. Time for another amnesia stick.
What is that?
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.